Welcome to Building Our Lives Together as One, and thank you for participating in this conversation. We have begun recording at this time, and I need to share a little bit of information with you before we begin our conversation. I invited you to this gathering for us to have a serious discussion on public safety. Our goal today is to share and to elaborate on those questions and engage in a conversation with you all. Thank you for agreeing to add your experience to the growing number of individuals who want to speak and be listened to, knowing that you matter, I matter, we matter. Through this conversation, I want you to really focus on sharing your own personal experience, your own personal lived experience, speaking from the I statement, rather than beginning the conversation with how you feel about that particular issue. I want you to focus on your own lived experience. We're doing this in order to build connections and foster conversations that improve our understanding of one another. So this conversation again is being recorded, is going to be transcribed and added to a growing number of conversations. As a participant in this conversation, you are providing consent for Building Our Lives Together as One to use this recording in accordance to our mission in fostering conversations in community and in the media that improves our understanding of one another. For those that agree, can you just say I agree to you guys being recorded?
I
I
agree.
agree.
I agree.
I agree.
Thank you. Okay, so for a quick round of introductions, I would like for us to say our name and a value that is important to you that needs to be in your community. So I'll start this one off. My name is Lakeisha. A value that is important to me is empathy. And I feel like it needs to be brought into our community because in order for you to show someone that you understand what they're going through, you have to be able to relate to them. And that is a major form of empathy. So I think that we need to show more empathy in our community. And I will pass it to number 4.
Hi, my name is Letitia. I think in my community, my biggest thing is understanding, kind of like what you said, understanding and compassion, understanding that everybody comes from different backgrounds and has experiences differently. And if we can all understand where everybody is coming from, we can have open and honest communication and conversations about what's going on in the community.
Hello, my name is Vanessa Morales, and something that I value really big is collaboration and community. I really want to say community, but if I say community, people won't see collaboration because it really depends on the community that you're come from. But I think as a community, we need to work together more. We need to get things combined and working well together. I see other communities do it, and we should be doing the same. So I think it's really important that community, as well as collaboration in community, is a big thing for me, because we can do more together if we're together than if it's just one person. But as a community, we can get a lot more done if we work together.
My name's Arkeem. I think one of the things that I value the most is support. And I think that my community and everyone community in general can benefit from understanding what support looks like. We talk about understanding and communicating and all these things, but a lot of people from my community, in my experience, I realized that they don't have support. They don't know what guidance look like. They don't know what it means to feel like they can do something or they're capable of doing something. They're just limited to what they think they can do and not really understand that if they had enough support, they can do a lot more than what they think they can do. And I think that support goes a very long way. And I am a product of what support looks like. When you go out there and you learn and understand what it is, because especially as an African American, like we really don't know what support looks like because we really haven't. Everything has been against us our whole life. So trying to say that we know what support looks like is very hard because it's never really been given to us by society, by sometimes our own family members and things like that. So I think finding ways to show what support looks like in our community will go a long way.
I value, and it's probably so simple, but family. You know, I have 3 children and we're all African American. So my main thing is being able to be together with them and safe in my community. Thank you.
What does empathy mean to you? What does empathy mean to you?
I think for me, empathy is the ability to just understand that other people like yourself may be dealing with certain things or have experiences that I might not be aware of. So just being able to understand where they're coming from and understand like what they may be experiencing or have experienced allows me to have empathy, I guess. So I think empathy for me is just the ability to understand other people's feelings and experiences and where they come from.
What empathy means to me is just helping out, just like it says the definition, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. And just to reiterate what Arkeem just said, you know, helping out the homeless is a lot what I like to do, give to anybody that is in need, you know, buy groceries for the next person. I always choose kindness. You know, every time I get my food stamps, you know, someone in line needs to get something. I need to buy somebody something. So just to make sure that someone has just as much as I have. Thanks.
For me, empathy means that having a knowledge that everybody's experiences and what they go through is different. Not everything is black and white. And that just having an understanding that how I may feel about something may be different from how somebody else does. And I have to acknowledge that. And I have to also think about not only how I feel about something, but how somebody else does. And knowing that their life experiences makes them feel the way that they do. And just having compassion about that.
Empathy for me is really understanding a person's feelings, but going a step further is trying to put yourself in that person's shoes. You know, you can understand something, but when you try to put yourself in that shoes, then you start thinking differently, or your perception of that person or that particular instance or something will give you a different view, because you're not just viewing it from the outside, you're putting yourself into that person's shoes. And it's like, how would you react from that? Or how would you do this? And when you look at it from that perspective, your reaction or your how you respond to whatever it is very different when you walk in somebody else's shoes, when you understand someone from that perspective. So that's empathy for me.
The time I felt safe was I know it's pretty far away from where I live now, and which is Dorchester. but I was out in the shelter all the way in Marshfield. And there was a nice lady that helped me out through the whole time. So I felt really safe at that time. And I was there for about 9 months. So it was nice being able to know that I can count on one specific person, because I didn't have family and I had no place to live at the time. So it was a lot to deal with, being alone with my daughter. But yeah, that's the time. I'm okay now though. So
The time I probably felt the most safe was just probably growing up in my neighborhood. I lived on like the Court Lake between Brighton and Roxbury, right on the cusp. And I lived in a gated community. I was able to run around and not have to worry about, you know, getting hurt, or my mother didn't have to worry about it. I knew all the kids in the neighborhood. We had security, throughout the whole entire gated community. So I felt the most safe then.
Me, a time when I felt safe, I could say is I live in Dorchester as well. Is when with my family and them being around. I feel safe. That's when I felt the most safest because my family was around. We look after each other. We help one another out. You know, even in the winter, if there's snow, someone would help and shovel some snow or help or leave something. That was the time I felt, I think, the safest when my family was around.
This is a good question, because like I'm thinking to myself, like growing up, I really haven't even thought about like have I ever really felt safe in life. Like my life has always been on the go, and I really haven't had time to process that. But just thinking about it right now, there's been a couple of moments in my life where I felt safe just recently. My friend bailed me out of jail with $10,000, and that alone, getting out of jail that night, that evening, made me feel really safe and loved and cared for. I don't know. I just don't trust people. I don't believe in people sometimes, and I don't believe in certain relationships at times. But that was a key moment in my life where, for the first time in my life, like I can truly say I felt really honestly safe and secure in that moment, and I was able to be vulnerable and be myself. So yeah.
I can remember I was volunteering at a particular agency and working with some youth. And they decided that they wanted to put on events to raise some money for something that they were doing for the youth. And we decided to have a party in the community because that's what the youth decided that they wanted to do. And I was a chaperone. And the time I felt unsafe, there was a shooting that took place. And it did not make me feel safe in any way. And in that instance, I remember yelling out to one of the kids, "What are you doing? Are you trying to get killed? Or why would you go over there and do that?" Not realizing that that particular person had already been hit with a bullet and went down right there after I spoke. So that instant, I did not feel safe for my children, for the children that was there, and it was a very uneasy feeling and not something comfortable to witness or be around, something like that.
For me, there was a moment in my own neighborhood. I grew up in Roxbury, right behind Madison High School, and obviously I've seen people, I've heard of people getting shot and killed and things like that, but it has never been so close to home, I guess, for me. So like there was one summer, a couple of weeks before the 4th of July, my best friend got shot in the back of his head in our neighborhood. And for the first time in my life, I'm like, I don't feel safe walking around my own neighborhood. I don't feel safe knowing that my best friend was just a bystander and he got shot. And I didn't feel like this was my community anymore or like my neighborhood anymore because something like this hit so close to home. And I just remember just sitting there and like not wanting to go outside, not wanting to just walk around my neighborhood because it just felt unsafe. It felt like, wow, this is actually real. Like the fact that he almost died, the fact that he almost lost his life to a bullet, and the fact that he is alive right now reminds me, like even now, even to this day, like I don't spend time around my neighborhood anymore. I try not to linger around it anymore because, or anywhere for that matter, because I know that at any instant something drastic can happen. And I'm not saying I live my life in fear. I just live my life knowing that if I put myself in an environmental situation, that some things can occur, and I have to be looking over my shoulder. So that's just one incident.
Hi again. A time that I didn't feel safe was August 10th, and I was sexually assaulted by someone I thought was a friend. So that's something I'm always going to remember. I didn't pursue it and press charges and all that kinds of stuff. I just wanted to let it go, but I will always remember that time I wasn't safe. And knowing that that's something that happened when I was a child and then changed to adulthood, it's crazy that you think you're strong enough to handle anything that comes towards you, and sometimes it just is too much.
A time that I didn't feel safe was probably in my early 20s. I was a college student, but I worked at night as a nanny. One particular day I was walking home. I'm always aware of my surroundings, but being early 20, you think you're invincible. So got your headphones on, you're not paying attention. So a guy came like in my path when I was walking, and typical, he wanted to talk and I didn't want to. And he like grabbed my upper arm. But then somebody was driving by and was yelling out the window, like, leave her alone. And then I quickly like walked away. Like I literally scared me so much that I ended up quitting my job. And and now to this day, I don't like working at night. I don't like walking the street at night by myself. And even when like I'm with my kids, I'm always hyper aware, even if it's getting close to dark. I'm always rushing to get home because that memory is always in my head.
I want you guys to just sit back for a second and think about some of the stuff that we just heard. This is our community.
Hi. So I don't know. I'm not really a person that's outside. This is the most I've done as far as joining this group to be interviewed about the community. I would like to be involved in stuff more, but it's not a lot that interests me because I feel like things aren't going to change too much. We can yell to the top of our lungs and do all we need to do, but someone else has to help with that change of the higher people, the government, and sometimes it's not going to happen. So it's very hopeful to think things are going to be different tomorrow, but my son loves to talk when I'm talking. I notice he does that all the time. But right now I can say my management company, just being able to come to my house, my door's locked, it's pretty clean over here. They keep things together compared to where when I was living in Mattapan, you know, there was a lot of stuff wrong in that apartment. So I could say the management company has been keeping me safe in this community.
I think from what I noticed, there's been a lot of, especially in my community, there's been a lot of programs started up for the youth, especially teenagers, to be more involved in their community. I know that in my building alone, they're opening a program for teenagers to do homework help for elementary kids. And surprisingly, I mean, I hate to say surprisingly, but a lot of teenagers signed up, which I was surprised by, just because, you know, I hate to think the worst of our youth sometimes, but just what you see in the media and what you see outside, you're like, they're not going to sign up, but they did. And my daughter goes there for homework help every now and again. And she sits with a couple of, you know, teenagers, and they help her with her math homework. And it's kind of like small things like that, I think, are going to start changing how you see themselves, because it's not all about the grand big plan, these big things. It's about these little small programs. And if you start these small programs in every neighborhood, then you can make those programs bigger, and maybe, you know, neighborhood-wide, then citywide, then statewide.
I live in Dorchester. I live in Dorchester Lower Mills area. I do feel safe in the area that I live in. And that is a good thing, because there are some neighborhoods you can walk by and you do not feel safe. Just to piggyback off of Letitia, I was going through that question, what is going well? What is going well? I see so much negative or bad. You do want to point out some of the things that are going well. I can't really answer the well question, but I can answer what we can be doing better. I don't want to negate the fact that they're not doing anything well, and there's so many things that's bad, but what things that we can do better. And it's piggybacking off of what Letitia said. I believe if we concentrate a lot more on our youth, put things in place that will help create an environment for safety, then we can say things are going well. I can't say they're going well now, but I do believe we need to put more things in place that will help our youth, because our youth are going to grow up to be us adults. And if we're not taking care of them now, or if we're not attending to them the way we need to, then this is where we have the mass incarceration. This is where we have the problems that we're dealing with, the opioid and the different things. We need to attend to our youth now and have more programs that are for them. And it should be in every community. There are some communities that have it, and there are some communities that are lacking it. We need to have it in every community. It should be like the corner store. It should be that the kids have a place to go that's safe, and they could do homework, or they can go and play basketball. They can go and do something. These programs are extremely important for our youth. And I'll just stop there.
I just recently moved back into my community. I was away I lived away from Boston for about like 7 years. I went to college, and I lived out there for about like 3 years. So like I just recently moved back about like 3 years ago, and in the process of coming back, I was in grad school and didn't have much time to integrate myself into the community. But so I don't know, I can't really say, oh, like what's really going well in my community either, because I'm just now reintegrating myself back into my own community and seeing there, like I've seen that there's a DeWitt Center in my community in Roxbury now, and that they redid the parks and the fields and things like that. And it's really cool to see that they're doing those things for us. But like, where was this years ago? Where was this like when we needed it the most? But like, then again, like I personally feel, this is my own opinion, is that a lot of people are not utilizing, they're not advertising those, because like, even though like I have been a part of my community, I didn't know what was inside that building. I didn't know what was being offered until I took the initiative to walk inside that building. Like, so I think like just being able to continue to highlight those resources, highlight those programs that are there for our community can go a long way, so that people like myself and others can volunteer or be or participate in those things. Because now that I'm done with school, that's my plan now, is to figure out how I can integrate myself in my community. Because there's not, where I come from, there's not a lot of people that went and got their master's degree or went and got a higher education. Not saying education is the only way to progress, but being able to have more individuals in this generation realize that they can do more than just sitting around playing video games, sitting around just walking around the streets, or just trying to find something to do and then end up getting in trouble because they don't have much to do. So I think just it's very important for us to continue to highlight the programs that are here in our community, so that our community can continue to get better.
Regarding public safety in the community, for me, my concern would be about my children and the children in the community. I feel that our children should be able to walk the streets of Boston and be safe. I believe that our children should be able to go to the parks and be safe. But I would not have my child go without me because I don't feel that it is safe. I live between two parks. I can walk to them in less than 5 minutes. And I can get to both of them, easy access for both of them. And my child's like, but I could go to the park by myself. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. But I would never, one, they're both across main streets, send them across a main street, first of all. Second of all, I would never send them to the park without my presence or an adult presence at all, period. Just the simple fact, you don't know what is going to happen, who is going to be there, whether it's a person, whether it's people's animals or anything. You don't know what's going to happen. So in that respect, that is a safety issue for me. I don't feel, and the parks are so close, but I don't feel safe to send my child not by themselves to the park to play and say that they are safe.
Growing up, I was one of the few kids that our parents called, like my family called the police on us. Like if we got into an argument or anything, and the police was always called to our house. So we were always known to have the police at our house all the time. And the police just got accustomed to knowing who we were. And so that there was moments like I remember when I was in high school, they did like had a police come talk to the students in the school. And there was one of the two police officers that came to my house multiple times and seeing me in the audience and things like that. But I think what I'm trying to get at is that having mental health be really talked about in these families, in our community, and in public safety, because these officers are coming to people's houses thinking that they're regulating and helping the family, but in reality, they're causing more mental health issues to individuals like myself, because they make it harder for us to trust them. They make it harder for us to believe that they have our safety at their best interest. And it becomes an issue of will I be safe? And me being a big African-American male, like I feel like I have a target on my back at times. And one false move, the police can take any type of lethal force against me because they have whatever they think is right and things like that. So just being able to to preach and teach mental health within the public safety community. Public safety community would be, I think, very key, I guess, because I now watch my siblings that I grew up with be products of the environment because of what public safety people that were supposed to be considered as public safety have done and what we experience towards them. So I think just like I said, having a mental health approach from them would help my community a lot more too. So.
Hi, so something I had put on the interview questionnaire was like for public safety to have more police actually walking around the streets. What number 2 just said about how, more people the police are known for showing up at people's houses. I wish the police were known for other things and actually keeping us safe and walking the streets and being at parks where we're able to have our kids there without our knowledge because a police officer is there. Like they're pulling people over all the time. I wish they can do a little bit more to keep us safe.
Mine's kind of the same as Vanessa. I think there are 2 parks near my house that are really nice parks, but every time that I go there, there are a lot of people using in the park and use needles in the park. And no matter how many times I call to have the park clean up, by like 2 days, it's filthy again. And I just want to be able to take my kids to the park that's near our place, that I don't have to walk 3-4 blocks into a quote unquote, white neighborhood. And those parks are a lot cleaner, but the parks that are in my own neighborhood, I can't take because I'm afraid that my kid might get stuck by something. Or there are people there, grown people using in a park that it's in the space for children. And I don't feel safe to go and be like, can you leave the park? Can my kids play here? And it's so weird that like in my own neighborhood, there's these gorgeous parks and I can't take my kids there because of that.
It's crazy because I'm sitting here and I'm shaking my head. I got a 25-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a soon-to-be 14-year-old. And my baby, he asks me all the time, I want to go to the park. I want to play basketball, Ma. I want to play basketball. I'm scared to go to the park. Never mind, take him to the park. So he don't get to play basketball, not at park, because this is conversations that definitely need to be heard, because there's no reason why our kids can't go to the park. So that means somebody needs to fix it. It goes to what Mika said. There's a lot of police in the wrong places. There's a lot of police, but they're in the wrong places. Instead of them pulling people over, they need to be in the parks. They're going to get paid regardless. So be in the park. Do you want to keep public safety really going on? Have a cop in the park between a certain amount of hours. During the summertime, we started doing Kids-A-Rama. And we first started out at Franklin Park. From Franklin Park, it was good, but then all the motorcycles and the bikers, they came up, and when I say they ran us out of there, they literally ran us out, kids and all. Like, from there, we went to the Harambe Park. We was there for maybe about a month, and right in the front entrance on Blue Hill Ave, I get up to go there Saturday morning. So a bunch of candles outside of the entrance to the park. I didn't realize that someone had got killed the night before, and we was about to have an event there for our kids to come to the park. So, and I thank you guys for sharing. Next, I want to try to make some deeper connections in the room. I feel like there's some already going on. But I want you to think about each experience that you guys just heard, the experiences that you just shared. And I want you to think about something that you heard that like really resonated, connected with your life. I don't want you to share who you heard that thing from unless you feel comfortable. But thinking about that experience that you heard, did that trigger something inside of you that brought up another unsafety concern that you didn't think about, that now you're like, oh, that is actually another major concern for myself and for my community?
Just listen to everyone's stories and like their what they've been sharing. For me personally, just shows a lot of strength for me, because it just shows me that everyone deals with a lot of things, and like that's something I've taken into consideration growing up in life, is that just because I'm dealing with one thing doesn't mean that like this is a lot worse than someone else, or it's better than someone else's pain and stuff like that. And just listening to everyone's story continues to remind me that like there's strength in our community, and where we come from. It doesn't matter if you have an education, doesn't matter if you have a high paying job, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we all come from similar backgrounds, and we hurt the same, we feel the same, we experience a lot of the things the same. We have different experiences. And I think listening to you guys' story, it's continuously motivating me to be the person that I know I can be. Like I don't need to go in about myself, but like I'm going through the hardest chapter of my life, but sitting here and listening to everyone's story gives me the strength that I need to realize that I can be the bridge for other youths that I work with, other families that I work with, other people that I interact with in the stores or just in life in general, and just continuously listen to their stories and understand that like no matter what I'm going through right now, I want to be able to continue to connect and build off of other people's stories, because their story is what helps me help elevate my own personal story and help elevate my own personal strength. So like being able to hear other people's story allows me to just be the person that I need to be for myself, but also for my community. Because when you hear these stories, you tend to feel motivated to want to to want to do more, to want to hear more, like and see more. And a lot of us want change, but we just don't have this. We never had a starting point. And for me, this group right now is kind of like the starting point. Listening to your stories allows me to say, hey, I can find a way to make sure that other people's stories are being highlighted, because listening to each other's stories allows us to understand life better than what we've understood it before. And I just think that, I don't know, our stories are so great, and it needs to be heard, it needs to be told, and it just needs to be told because it needs to be able to serve as a reminder to other youth, other older adults and things like that, to show that no matter what you're going through, we can find a way of getting through it through coming together as community, coming together, listening to each other's stories, so that we can realize that we are not alone, and that we're not by ourselves. Because that's the number one thing I believe that hurts our community, is that we feel like we're alone. And once we listen to each other's story and hear the other story, we're like, oh wow, I'm not alone. Like this person has dealt with this. I can relate to this. I can understand this a lot better than like most people can. And so like I want to connect with this person. That's how we build communities. That's how we build create strength within our own communities and things like that. So I just think just listening to each other's stories has continuously helped uplift me in my times of need right now. And I think that if we can do this with with police officers, school committee counselors, like our officials, like getting our stories out there. That's what I want to start focusing on, and how can we get our stories out there? We don't need to say everything that has happened to us, but like say the concrete things like homelessness, like you said, sexual assault, identity, like family issues. These things, like we all have a story and a background, and I think having our stories be heard, it's what's gonna continuously allow us to uplift ourselves and find the strength within ourselves to move on with each day, because we're gonna realize that we're not alone anymore. We're gonna realize that, yeah, I'm dealing with the hardest thing in my life right now, but someone else is persevering through this difficult time. So if they're persevering through this difficult time, maybe, just maybe, I can find a way to get strength to persevere through my struggles, to my identity crisis, or the things that are coming my way. So I just think listening to you guys' story is just, I don't know, just continuously uplifting. And then just being the only guy in this group right now and listening to females conversation, women conversations, like it empowers me to continue to be an advocate for the male community, so that more men can feel comfortable with sitting in a room with women and sharing their ideas, expressing their thoughts and feelings, about safety, about their concerns, and about their mental health and things like that. So yeah, that's what I took away from it, listening to everyone's stories and experiences that they shared.
Very nice. You stole a couple of my ideas I was going to say, which was you being the only man in here, standing up for them. You know, having that around is definitely a lot better for kids and the community. Seeing men actually stand up for women and instead of holding guns, you know, that's definitely something I would like to get out there, because another time of not feeling safe is, just like you say, being in police custody and people getting shot, you know, having memorials. Like, we should be tired of doing those kinds of things, you know, the men in this world, because that's a lot of them, you know, sorry to put the stereotype, it's coming from young men and the older men who's still trying to be young. So it's tough to make a community when half of it's trying to be destroyed by the violence that's been going on. You know, a lot of missing kids and a lot of young kids dying, stray bullets. It's like it's a lot. You know, you can't have your kid walk to the park or walk to the bus stop to go to school because of all the violence. So, you know, listening to everybody, it was nice to hear and to have a man in this interview as well. So thanks for everybody.
Just from everybody's story, I think what came to mind is how important these circles are, these conversations that should be happening kind of like all over the community. And I also think how important mental health is, because I think when we go through experiences in our neighborhood and we don't talk about it, it kind of perpetuates this cycle of, we don't talk about what's happening in our neighborhood. We just let it go. We don't, you know, and then we pass it on to the next generation, and then they have to suffer from our not talking about it, and then they don't talk about it, and then it's just this vicious cycle. And I think that's why so many times when we go through something and then our children see it, then they go through something, and then we wonder, well, why are they going through it? It's because we weren't talking about it. And I think when we start having more conversations just like this about what we experience, and then have compassion and empathy about other people's experiences, we can then teach our children these things. And then as they grow, they can experience the same compassion and empathy, and so on and so forth. So just kind of listening to everybody, I'm like, it's important to have these conversations, and it's important to take care of our mental health, and also recognize that our children's mental health is also important, because I think that a lot of times parents don't think our kids go through stuff when they go through so much things that they're not talking about. So I think that is like a pivotal point of, you know, having these conversations.
And just to piggyback off of everyone else, I think thank everybody for contributing and recognize that everybody's piece is valuable. What resonates with me the most, I have to say, Arkeen, you made some valid points when you were talking about mental health. And the other thing that you said in one of your sentences that, you know, being a big Black male in the community, you kind of feel like you have a target on your back. And I see this in the community, especially for our young Black males who are young. And I say young, like 12, 13, but they're 6 foot or they're 200 and some pounds. And they're still like a middle schooler, or they're just 14, or they're just in high school. They have a target on their back. And we shouldn't feel like that. We shouldn't live in a place where we feel like we're oppressed in a way that our kids are going to be oppressed. And going back to what Letitia said, we shouldn't feel like that because our kids are going to experience the same thing. And then that cycle is going to continue to repeat itself. Mental health is huge. Mental health and how the police handle mental health, it really is bothersome. I can recall an incident where the police was called for mental health, and there was a licensed therapist or whoever the person is that came, and they called the ambulance. But with the ambulance, the police has to come to get the person to come. And of course, the officers were Caucasian. And the question that they asked that appalled me and appalled the licensed therapist at the time was, how big is he? Is an African American? Is he big? Are we gonna have to like bring him down? And she was like, no. And even if he was, that's not the situation that we hear. I would explain that, but the simple fact is they go in with their head and they're like, okay, how are we gonna get this person down? They're Black, they're big. How are we gonna, we need more than two? Should we call backup? That should not be the case. It's a mental health situation. We know things can change in the split of a second. And I know as police officers, they have to be ready. But at the same time, you're dealing with mental health. You can't deal with it the same way that you deal with a crime scene. It doesn't have to turn into something like that. They have to be trained to understand and to talk to people in a certain way that can help the situation, not make the situation worse than what it already is. And I think because mental health is huge, and because of COVID and the capacity that COVID has brought with the isolation, with people being locked in for a long period of time, and people having that fear where we're not sure what's going to happen tomorrow, or is the family going to die? Some people saw whole families die. Some people saw, grandparents or someone close to them die because of COVID. COVID has exacerbated people's mental health, especially in our community. And part of it is isolation. We were isolated. We were kept separated. And now, people feel like they're in that survival mode. I'm just surviving, not recognizing this isn't an incident, even though it feels like it's a long period of time. We're only in it for when we're in it, and we're going to get out of it. It may not feel that way, but we are. And we have to attain to other people's mental health. We have to understand where they're at. But what happens is we're not supporting one another. We're not doing it as a community. And it shouldn't only be us in the community. It should be our churches. It should be our legislatures. It should be the police. It should be the teachers. They need to come together, because that is how they're going to combat dealing with the mental health in our community. And then don't add poverty. Don't add problems with childcare for a single parent. Don't add all these other factors that are happening within our own community, and the fact that we can't take our kids to the park because we don't feel safe. We can't take our kids to different parts of the community because, oh, well, we could go over here, but we can't go over there. That is sad. That is not how we're supposed to live. We're supposed to live and thrive in the community that we are in. And we see it, some people are thriving, but their mental health is not that good. And we need to make sure we're attending to people's mental health. And that's why it's important to have empathy, to understand where people are coming from. It's important to understand that we need to make sure that it's not just us. It needs to be the teachers. It needs to be the police officers. It needs to be the community leaders, the legislation. They need to be a part of it to help us to get through it. Man.
Can I also add something?
Yeah.
I'm going to show my face now. I don't know if you guys see me, but just listen to everyone. It just really this is why I went to school. Last year I just graduated with my master's degree in clinical social work, and I've been focusing on mental health. And I've been a product of being stereotyped, I've been tased by 3 different cops. I've been taken down by multiple cops, and just experiencing all those things, I realized throughout my whole life that I've been blessed to be able to be mentally strong, to be mentally sane, because a lot of kids from my community don't have the mental ability to see beyond what they're going through. And that's where my motto has come from. Be the person that I needed when I was growing up. Obviously, I struggled with my own personal mental health stuff growing up, but I don't know what happened, but God blessed me to be able to understand that I need support and go out and reach out for support. And I think we talked about legislators and like community leaders in our churches being able to talk about it. But I think the real reality sometimes, and the harsh reality, is that we have to start within ourselves to be able to go out there. And that's why I have the ability to be able to connect with all these young kids and families that I've worked with. And I saw someone talked about their autistic son, and like being able to work with people with autism, being able to work with individuals that have behavioral needs and things like that. The reason why I'm able to do that is because A, I look like them, but B, I have the ability to show them what can happen if you apply yourself to become someone better than what society says you can be. Like, not a lot of individuals grow up and say they want to be a therapist or want to be someone that works in the community. I told myself I wanted to do that. And the reason why I wanted to do that, because of the lack of resources, the lack of support. We have, like you said, when the police come for a mental health crisis, there's a white Caucasian woman coming to the house that's supporting individuals. There's not a big Black man like someone like me that looks like them, that can relate to them, that can understand what they're going through. And I think like being able to be that, sometimes it feels like being that first person, like that first guy to be able to step out in that threshold and show people, hey, like, I'm willing to take that chance. Because that's why we don't have a lot of Black presidents. We don't have a lot of African Americans in office and stuff, because we are not taught that we can be in that office. We're not taught that we can be there, or we don't have the mental health capacity to understand that we can get through the situation that we are put in. Like, our lives, we, like, as African American, we're put in a hellhole. We're put in a society where nothing is fair, nothing is given to us, and we have to fight nail and tooth. And like, I look at my life and I reflect on my life right now. I'm like, going through what I'm going through right now. I'm like, damn, I've been fighting my whole life just to be a support system for other people. It's not about me anymore. It's not about what I'm trying to do. It's about helping the next generation to not have to go through the things that I've gone through, or help them to understand that they can be mentally sane enough to attack all the problems, the welfare, the poverty, the inconsistent relationships, the abuse, all those things that we go through, like that results in mental health. We can get through it. And I think that's where I thank God that I'm able to be that light. Like, a lot of people that I worked with, especially white Caucasians, like, oh, can you be this person? Like, I'm their token Black guy, because there's not many people, African American males, that are willing to go in the field of social work to help this community, to help the not only Black kids, but white kids and Caucasian families too, and all races, just to show them that, hey, it doesn't matter what color you are, we are all human beings and we all hurt the same, we all feel the same. And so let me show you what it feels like to be supported, what it feels like to have empathy for other people, what it feels like to put yourself in other people's shoes, so that we can make it go. The reason why we haven't made progress in our communities and stuff is because, yes, we're not talking about it, but we're not feeling comfortable within ourselves to be able to express the things that we've gone through. Once we're able to express the things that we've gone through, we can have the opportunity to sit in a room. Like, everyone in this group right now has shared something that they've gone through or experienced and stuff. If you guys didn't have worked through those things that you guys went through, you wouldn't be able to share that right now. And I think that's where I think we need to start. So that's why I said earlier, supporting people. We need to start supporting people enough so that they can feel comfortable with sharing their not only their traumas, but their highs, the good things that's happened to them, and not only talk about the low things, so that they can feel comfortable with sharing it in front of police officers. Like, I tell my friends all the time, like, they don't understand the things I experienced through college and grad school, like being an African American male in class with a bunch of white women, like having them say, like, oh, my ideology is better than this and things like that, or this is accurate or this, and it's just like being able to say, I can sit in a room full of white Caucasian people and voice my opinion without being afraid, without being afraid of not being heard and stuff like that, because that's a lot of us African American in our community. We feel like we're not being heard. We feel like change is not going to happen. But until we find a way to eliminate all that fear and put ourselves in that position and take that stance, we're not going to be able to see change and stuff. And that's what I'm trying to do right now in my own personal life, is show people I'm willing to step out and take and put myself in a place of vulnerability and show them, hey, like, this is uncomfortable for me to sit in a room with white women, expressing all their feelings about diagnoses or other Black kids' future and stuff, like African Americans' kids' future, because they think they know what's best. In reality, they don't. And that pushes me to say, hey, I can get through this. And if I can get through this, I can help someone else. I can help this other child and this other teenager, this other adult know that, hey, this person was able to sit in this uncomfortable position to advocate for me. And now I think I can try to do that for myself. And then it can trickle down to other people once you pass it on to other people. So I just think, like, more of the story is just being able to work on ourselves, like I have, and continues to understand myself. More importantly, will allow me to be able to create that change. Because look like Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, like, they fought nail and tooth to have racism abolished and all these things, but we still live in a society where racism still is so prominent. But did change happen? Yes, it did happen. It just happened a small amount. But that's why I tell people all the time that change needs to happen within yourself, so that change can happen within your community, and not try to see, like, the drastic change. The change you're going to see is in the way people will interact with you, interact with me, and interact with the community. And that's where I think that's where we need to continue to work on, just working on ourselves and loving ourselves and improving ourselves, so that we can share our stories within our community, so that they can share their stories within their community, and it can be passed on. And that's where the small micro change can happen within our community. Sorry for my long rant, though.
Love it.
Was amazing. I'm gonna play a short video in my background. If you guys keep your video on mute, you should be able to hear this really good. After, I will put in the link where I got this from. So granted, it says women, but the speech is definitely for everyone.
You may not even know what you believe.
Can everyone hear it?
But you can look at your
Yes. Oh, now I can't.
doing the same thing over and over.
All right,
and
I'll stay
over
on mute.
again. Something must be wrong with it. You know, for me, it was always relationship. I know y'all don't know what I'm talking about, but in St. Louis, they got issues. You know, this is what I love. I love when people write me about their relationships. I'll be reading a letter and I say, boo, don't you know I've been divorced 3 times? Why are you writing me? This is not going to turn out well for you. It is not going to turn out well for you. Asking me what to do about your marriage. I divorced 3 times, twice from the same person. Because I didn't know I mattered. Just crazy as hell. Do you know you can inherit crazy? You inherit crazy. You think crazy, you talk crazy. Some people even walk crazy. Then people be like, what's wrong with her? She crazy. But it's not until we understand that we matter. Who we are matters. What we do matters. How we do it matters. And therefore, we have to take responsibility for everything that's going on in our life. I know the crazy people set you up, but it was a divine setup to give you what you needed in order to grow beyond where you were. You matter. What you think matters. What you think matters. Mind is energy. Every thought creates energy. And energy, once created, can never be destroyed. It can be transformed, but it cannot be destroyed. So every thought you have is lingering around somewhere in your mind. Let me ask you this. Have you ever had an argument in your head with yourself and lost? You can't do that. Yes, I can. No, you can't. I'm telling you, you can't do that because you got to live with your bad way. Well, why are you telling me that? I'm telling you that because I love you, because I want you to. Ain't nobody in your head but you. Now, if you can't win in your own head, what are your chances out in the world? You matter. Therefore, what you think matters. And you've got to be clear about separating what you think from what you've been told to think. I learned that about okra. I don't like okra. I just don't. Okra had never crossed my lips, but I didn't like okra because my mother told me okra's nasty. And you always believe your mama until she tell you that the boy you brought home ain't good for you. And you don't believe her then. But when it come to okra, you believe her. So when I was in college and my kids were young, my neighbor used to look in on them sometimes when I had to go to class. And so one night, Miss Fountain, her name was Jessie Fountain, she lived right across the hall from me. One night she cooked and she brought this food over. And I don't know, the kids left me some because usually they didn't leave me anything. Isn't that how them little terrible buggers do you? You cook all day and they get in the kitchen and you come back and there's a greasy paper towel and a crumb. All right, we won't have that conversation. That's another lecture. So Miss Fountain cooked this dish of stuff and there was a little bit of it, maybe 2 tablespoons left in the bowl. And so I came home and I ate it. I was like, what is this? This is food of the gods. I love this. What is it? So I went next door and I knocked on Miss Fountain's door. Miss Fountain, what is this? She said, okra and butter beans. I said, okra? It can't be no okra because I don't like okra. She said, well, that's what it is. Okra and butter beans with a little bacon. Miss Fountain, I don't eat pork. She said, well, it's okra. I simmer the butter beans down with a little bacon and I put it in there and then I put the okra on top so they just remain nice and crunchy. We have to check out what we're thinking about what we can and cannot do. Is it your thought or is it a thought that was given to you?
Thank you, King, for sharing. I'm pretty sure some of you guys might know who that is. For those who don't, that's Ayana. She is known for Ayana Save My Life, Help Me Save My Life, or something of that nature. I love that lady. She has a book. She has a few books. She is very, very, very powerful. But I want you to think how you felt, like what came to mind, what insights, what reactions, what anything came to your body as you was listening to her?
What came to mind was I was happy to see her. I was like, oh, I know her. Um, she's a nice lady. She has definitely, what you say, some powerful words. And I laughed through it. It was good to hear her voice.
Kind of listening to her, it kind of reminded me of my mother and like kind of the values she like instilled in me about having my own voice and having my own opinion. And if I don't agree with someone, that I have a right to say I don't agree with you, and not to be a yes person and not to agree to everything and have my own mind and my own opinion, which is kind of what I instill in my daughter. Unfortunately, sometimes my daughter can take that a little far by disagreeing with everything everybody says. But um, I think I think it's a powerful message because I think that we live in a society where if someone says something, especially a family member or an elder, we deem it as true. It's like it's gospel. And I think that we have to come to a point, especially when we become an adult, that we have to sometimes take what our parents say with a grain of salt, because I know that, every generation is different. I know that my grandmother, she lived in a generation where, Black people didn't speak up for themselves and we were always in the background. But that can't be how I raise my children. It won't work. And it can't be how I live my life. It just won't work. So I take what she says, because she always says to me, be polite, say yes, ma'am, say no, ma'am, be agreeable and things like that, especially with white people. And I'm like, no. To an extent, yes, but not in a way where it's going to put myself, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Compromise my integrity, and not for me not to be able to live in my truth. But I understand that that's where she came from, and I understand that's how she grew up. But I also have to recognize that I can't grow up that way. And the way that I grew up, my daughter can't grow up that way, because I grew up in a time where things were not exactly safe, but they were a little bit more safer. And my daughter is not growing up in a society that's like that, how I grew up, where we can run around the neighborhood and, and without our parents, and it was fine. Everybody knew us. Everybody knew each other's children, each other's parents. My daughter's not living like that. I don't know my next door neighbor. I don't know her from a hole in the wall. And my daughter doesn't know those kids either. And it's a shame, but it's kind of how we have to in order to survive. I can't allow my kid to go to every Tom, Dick, and Harry's house and not know what's going on. There's no safety in that anymore.
For me, what I took, that I love to hear her speak. I think it's always wonderful when I hear her speak. But what resonated with me with her is something that Arkeem said, and something that the theme, it's you matter. And I think you said it too, Lakeisha, when you started it. We matter, I matter, and we all matter. And I think that's really important, especially as a person of color, to recognize that we do matter and our voice matters, and we need to get our voice out there, and we can have impact, and we all collectively came together and recognize that we do matter. And I think that is what sticks to me the most, especially when she talked about the voices in your head. If you're going against the voices in your head and you're losing, oh, why would you think you matter then? And she's right. We have those voices in our head. And like I always, when I'm working with youth, what are you listening to? What are those voices telling you that you can't do? They're already telling you in your head that you can't do it. Why can't you do it? I always ask people, why can't you do it? Tell me the reason why. Because every reason you give me that you can't do it, I can give you a reason why you can. So what we need to do is flip it, recognize that we matter, shut those voices off in our head and flip that scenario. Whatever they say you can't do, well, you can do. But I think it's important for us to recognize that, but we have to recognize that within ourselves. And until we do that, that's when we will start to see progress. And I think someone earlier had mentioned Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King in that era. What they did is they worked together. They collaborated. They worked together. She was tired. She's like, I don't feel like it today. And for whatever reason, she said, I don't feel like it today and I'm not doing it. And she stood her ground. Yeah, it cost her. She had to go to jail. She had to do that. But guess what? Everybody else heard about it. We didn't have Instagram then. We didn't have social media then. But everybody heard about it and stood up for her and stopped using the buses. And when they stopped using the buses, guess what? We were the ones using it. It made an impact. And that's why we were able to make a dent. And that's why I think we should be able to come together and make a difference. But when we come together, we're not making a difference by ourselves, because it can't be just my fight. It can't be just your fight. It has to be our fight.
I like that a lot. I think for me, what stood out the most from her conversation was about our thoughts. Like she said, like what we believe and what we think. What we think is what we believe and what we become. And one of the things that I learned in grad school was cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's how our brain, our thoughts is connected to our behaviors and action and things like that. And just understanding how if a child is told that they're not good enough, that they're not going to amount to anything, they're going to continue to be suspended, they're going to believe that and become that. And what you believe is what you become sometimes. And I think that she said, like, she nailed it on the coffin. Like, you matter. Like, once you realize you matter, nothing else really matters in life. And I think that's as a testament to my own personal strength. As a person that grew up with no mom and dad and no family structure in his life, like, that's one thing I've taken consideration in growing up, is that I see so many people doing so many other things. I see so many people with family members are like thriving in certain ways, and thinking that I don't matter because I don't have a family, or I don't matter because I don't have the things that they don't have. And once I started realizing that I do matter, like all things in life change for me. And I started realizing, like, I have a confidence in me that no one can take away from me. I have this ability in me that that speaks volumes when I come into a room and things like that. And so just being able to understand that I matter when I walk into a room creates a lot of confidence for me. And I think that's what stuck out for me in the video, is just continuously to have that confidence in yourself that I matter, regardless of what this person might have, what this person might be doing and things like that. Regardless of what happened, I matter, and I'm going to continue to speak that into existence. And once you can speak that into existence, you can become that, and everything else starts to trickle down. But I think she just did a great job of just showing you, like it doesn't matter if you're like me as a guy, like I'm a guy watching her thing, and she showed that it's not only for only women, it's for everyone. If you can take away the fact that us men, we do matter, our feelings do matter, our emotions do matter, and just taking that in consideration, that really can start the conversation that needs to be had. And like, it goes back to what I said, like, once we can love ourselves and work on ourselves, that's when the real work can start, the real change can start happening, and we can start having those conversations, and then we can start trickling down on other people. But I think she did a phenomenal job of just expressing that we do matter, and that our thoughts are tied into how we perceive ourselves and how others perceive us. And we just need to remind ourselves that the way people perceive us is not always accurate, and they don't know our true self. And that's why it's important to dig deep into knowing who we are as an individual on the spectrum.
It's amazing. When I was listening to her this morning, I try to listen to like little inspirational quotes from anyone every morning, just to give me like that boost. and I came across that one. I was like, oh, that goes with my interview. Once you say, you matter, I was like, yes, 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 we do matter. Like, yay. So I want you guys to reflect on this whole conversation, right? And just think about what hopes do you have for your community in 5 years? Where you see your community at in 5 years? Right? Where do you see Boston? Where do you see Massachusetts? Where do you see us at in 5 years?
For me personally, in 5 years, man, there's so much gentrification going on. There's so much happening in my community, like a lot of old buildings getting built, broken down and rebuilt. But I think my hope for my community is that more mental health services and providers will be in my community. That's my hope for 5 years. Like we're creating all these programs and these buildings, things like that. I hope that mental health is highlighted more and more within my community, so that more and more African American children can find resources and access to the mental health that they need. Mind you, that we're going to be hopefully coming out of pandemic in 5 years, and hopefully things will simmer down. So just being able to hopefully have a somewhat foundation for mental health within my community. And I hopefully you can start with me going forward as I navigate throughout my own community in the next couple of years.
Yes, so in 5 years, I hope for the community, just like you say about these buildings being built, that they actually bring in some more activities for the children. I feel like it's a lot of stores and Black businesses. We need to open some gyms for kids and some places for more children to go inside. And hopefully this mask and pandemic is over in 5 years. Like, can only hope that people stop dying from it. I'm glad that we had this interview to hear the other sides of Dorchester and Boston and Massachusetts. It's good. I would hope that we are able to come together from this interview. Thank you for having me.
5 years, I think the biggest thing for me is more mental health services for youth, not just for adults, for youth. And I think as young, for all ages, really all ages, because I think I've seen 5-year-olds who have been impacted by community violence, and especially if it's within their own family. So more programs for youth for mental health. I think more programs for youth to have after school programs and weekend programs, just to keep youth always engaged within their community, starting up programs just like they have in my building, where the youth are tutoring and mentoring young children. And I also think having young adults in their early 20s mentoring teenagers, and sharing their experience. I think having conversations like this also is really great, having more circles like this. If everybody shares their experiences with other people, like I think somebody said, I can't remember, then people won't know that people will realize they're not alone in their experiences. Because I think sometimes youth think that nobody else is going through what they're going through. They're the only ones. Nobody understands them. But I think if we have more conversations and more circles like this for the youth, I think it would be a lot better. And I think that they will have a sense of community, and then they can pass it on and so forth. So my hope is that in 5 years, we have more programs. We have more mental health programs for youth and for, adults, for everybody, particularly. And this pandemic to be gone, completely gone.
I'm in agreement with the pandemic, first of all, to be gone. things that I would like to see in 5 years, and I don't know if it'll all happen in 5 years, but in my head, what I'm looking to see is, you know, families in Massachusetts will be able to have access to high quality, affordable care for kids that are in daycare or out of school time. So they'll have access to that, and that the legislature will do something about it. So everyone has access, not just people who are low income, but people who live in the community across Massachusetts has access. Another thing I would like to see is our schools. For Boston itself, we live in Boston, and our schools are not where they should be. We have the best colleges in the country, in the state of Massachusetts, and throughout the country and across the world, but yet our public education is terrible in our own community. I have a problem with that. Something else I would like to see is that within our schools, that we would have the highest graduation rates within our schools, and that our schools will change over for the better. Mental health, they would address the mental health. Also, access to housing. Housing in Boston is ridiculous. Somehow we were so far behind California, New York, and all that, and now we're like number 2, number 3. It's insane. And the last thing is, as a community, as a collective community, that we would be making changes in our own community so we can see the difference. We would be able to buy up the houses that they're buying up, not for gentrification, but to change the cycle. We would be buying it up. We would come together collectively like other communities and buy up property so we can change and make a difference in the community we live in. Because when we have access to that, and when we have the properties, and when we can make those decisions, guess what? Decisions and things, it will make a huge difference. But because we don't have that buying power, we can't make those decisions. But when we have the buying power, we can make the change that we want to see.
This is amazing, you guys. My first group. So for my first group, you guys are amazing. I got one final question for you guys, and I like to call it raising your voices. Like scream it out, shout it out type thing. So I want you to think, like, we're sitting in front of the state local representative, the state house, White House, whatever, wherever we at, right? And if you can just say one thing to the crowd, to the White House, to the state representatives, to our local representatives, what would it be? Like, you have your 1 minute to shine. You got to be able to like da 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 da, and like really get it across and make it powerful. What would that be? I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of time to think about it. We're at the White House. The president's coming out right now, and we all gonna step up to the mic, take some time to say what's on our mind about what's going on in our community and what we need in our community. What would you say? Because your turn is next. Whenever you're ready, set the mic.
That is, oh gosh. I have a whole laundry list. I'm like, just one thing. What would I say?
Nope, you got 1 minute. You can say whatever you want to say. You got a whole minute.
Oh, if I had a minute, and what I would say is we need to make a change, and the change needs to come now. And it's less than a minute, but the change needs to come now. It needs to come in housing. It needs to come in childcare. It needs to come in the safety of our community. It needs to come around our children. That is something that I would want to say. Change needs to come now, not tomorrow, it needs to come now, and we need to start making that change now.
For me, I would say invest in our communities, invest more in our communities, and I would provide them with various ways of why an investment in our community can go very far. And like you're building these new gentrification houses, communities, and things like that. So let's invest in the community that we would need and what we would want. And that includes our schools, our mental health resources, that's job resources, like you said, homelessness, housing resources. Like there should not be many people still living in the streets. Like as a person that's dealt with homelessness, we should not be still struggling with homelessness. You gave out brief pandemic checks, whatever. Well, let's figure out how we can create money that's going to help stabilize, and then bring up the fact that like Boston Housing was created to help people get out the streets and help people get ahead in their circumstances, and how that has failed over the years and stuff like that, and how that could be pointed out, but also emphasizing the important, like as I've been preaching about mental health, how mental health resources, like white communities have these therapists in their community that they can afford and stuff like that. Well, we have Mass Health, we have all these health insurances. Why can't we afford to get a mental health counselor in the schools or in the communities? Why is it hard to find? Why do I have to wait a whole year to get a therapist and things like that? So like being able to talk, invest in more resources for mental health, but then resources in education instead of timeout centers or suspensions. Let's invest in a program that's going to allow kids to hone in on their skills, because school education is not everything. Like some kids don't have the ability to just sit in classrooms and do it. Let's find trades. Let's bring back trades. All these people these trades and stuff are dying nowadays. Not a lot of kids want to do construction. Not a lot of kids want to work in the field or do maintenance or do the things like fix things or plumbing and things like that. Make those things great again, so that kids can see that, oh, I can make over $100,000 a year being a plumber or being an electrician and things like that. Make these jobs great again, and just being able to just say, like I said, just invest in our community so that we can have the resources and stability to be able to move forward. And so that the people that like are myself that are trying to be the first to have these conversations so that they won't be the last people to have these conversations when we get the funding and resources that we need for our community. That's probably more than a minute, but still.
So something that I would say is I want this to stop. Right now, we all matter, and I want that to be honest. Rent decreases, housing opportunities, and public safety, and having complete awareness to stopping the violence. You know, me losing my uncle, it was 13 years ago on February 11th of this year. And he got shot in Lenox Park. And, you know, I still to this day haven't even stepped foot down there ever since that happened. You know, I don't do nothing down in that area. And now I notice they change it to this Nubian Square, and, you know, they're trying to fancy it all up now. But, you know, no one's ever acknowledged anything that's happened down there, you know, all the violence that we suffer. And something that I'm grateful for is that they did take the time after 2.5 years, but they found his killer. And that's a lot that people don't get. You know, a lot of families do not get to find their killer. And it something that I'm always thinking about is just how with so much violence and nothing is ever done. I just really wish that, you know, someone could do something about it.
I think for me, and what I went to school for, what I spent all those thousands of dollars in tuition for, is like mental health. That's so big for me, and especially with youth. I really feel as though mental health should be mandatory in schools. It should be every child should have a counselor regardless of where they come from, their background, age, doesn't matter. Because I think, you know, mental health, it affects how we think and how we feel, and like how we cope with stress and how we relate to others and the choices that we make. And I think that having that in schools, and it also teach kids to be compassionate with others, because if they can understand their own mental health, they can understand why another child acts the way they do. And I feel like it will seriously decrease bullying, because sometimes people bully, like, you know, that saying, hurt people hurt people. And if you don't understand your own mental health, then you try to project it onto somebody else, and that's where all that bullying comes from, because you're hurt in your life, and the only way you feel better is by picking on somebody else. So I feel like in schools, mental health should be a priority. I know they talk about social emotional learning with younger children, but it seems like it stops at a certain age where they're like, okay, we don't care how you feel anymore. Can you pass this MCAS? Can you get into this college? Can you go work and make money? Those are the things that after a certain grade, that's what they want you to do. But nobody's talking about why this one child keeps, missing school, or why he's bullying somebody, or why, his clothes are not the way they should be, or whatever the case may be. And it all stems down to checking in with the child's mental and checking in with the child's emotion and what they're going through. And I think if children have people to talk to, and especially people who look like them, because I feel like nobody can experience or understand your experience unless it's someone who looks like you. So I get there is a lack of Black and brown therapists and counselors out there. And there are more white people who are trying to counsel young Black and brown children, and not saying that they can't do their job, but I feel like children will relate better to people who look like them.
You guys. So those are all the questions that we have for you. Do any of you guys have any questions or closing thoughts for me, since I did all the questions for you? Ding, ding, ding.
I just want to say thank you for just having the forum so we can get out what we feel, because a lot of times we have these feelings or these expressions that we want to get out, but we don't have the right source to get it out to. We want to be able to communicate our feelings, but me shooting the breeze with XYZ over here is not really getting it out. So getting it out in the community forum where other people feel or understand where you're coming from, I think is a bigger deal and makes a bigger difference. And if in any way it can help or better our community, why not? So thank you.
Thank you.
And I will second that too as well. To just being able to, I think this group taught me to take the initiative. Like that's what you're doing right now in regards to like starting this conversation. Someone got to take the initiative and not being afraid to take the initiative because you don't think you're ready or you don't think that you're qualified. Because like that's something that I've been struggling with my whole life. It's like, what makes me qualified to go out in this community and talk to these kids or talk to my own friends about like mental health or like the issues that or we're dealing with and stuff like that. But I'm learning that no one's really qualified to do anything. We just have to do it because we want to do it and because it means a lot to us. And this is a topic and a conversation that means a lot to me. And I just appreciate the fact that you just took the initiative just to bring us in this room together and be able to see what can happen if we take the initiative to just sit in a room full of other people that have experiences and thoughts like us. So thank you.
Thank you.
I was gonna say pretty much what the last two said, but just kind of thank you for like having this platform, because it starts conversations that I think is needed within our community and conversations that I think people want to have but don't know how to start it. And I think even if you can have 20 people and you do these with 20 different people, if we get at least 5 of those people to start their own conversations within their community or within the organization that they're affiliated with, and then it goes on and goes on out throughout the community. So like, this is
Triple.
kind of the first thing, like first time I've ever been in a space like this where we're kind of talking about it instead of just reading about it or kind of being the outsider looking in. This is the first time me being in a conversation like this. So I really appreciate it because it gives me kind of an ideas that I can take back to, my own organization. It's like, okay, what are we doing? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Today has been a beautiful morning. I really appreciate all of you guys. And I thank you so much for joining. I'm going to stop the recording now.